so it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And preview one of our three final previews of the year, Paddy, of 2024-2025 season, as Villa go to Bournemouth at the weekend, hoping to keep the European challenge alive and win to stay in at this stage. And even at that mightn't do it the way fixtures are at the moment. But have to go and beat Bournemouth, Paddy, if we're going to keep any hopes of Champions League football alive.
Yeah, well, if you slip up at any stage here, I think it's game, set and match as much as I think it's game, set and match anyway. But that's just my way of dealing with what is probably an inevitable hurt. But after years of this is the best coping mechanism I have. So I apologise if people don't see happy smiley Paddy waiting to see who we get in the Champions League next year, because there's a lot at stake and a lot of moving parts, and we've just got to do our own job and see what happens underneath or above, and hopefully that starts with a win at the weekend in what's not going to be an easy fixture. We've got three very difficult fixtures, and this one is probably the most difficult one of them now after tonight's results.
I think so too. Before we actually go into the Bournemouth game, and I meant to start with this, just want to say congratulations. We haven't been on since our under-18 team won the Youth FA Cup at the weekend, or on Monday. Fantastic performance, really great game of football, some really good, talented footballers there. Some of them have signed new contracts even since then. But then tonight they go out and they win the Southern Division. And they now go to play Man City in a rematch for all the cheese, as they say. And the North plays the South, and winner takes all then in that instance. But it's well done to Jimmy Shan, and well done to the academy. It's not been an easy year for them. They've obviously had to deal with juggling, I suppose losing players playing upgrades at under 21 level, but also they've had to deal with European escapades as well this year. Very, very close to going further in that competition, albeit they came up against an absolutely brilliant Barcelona side. So every single one of those young men should be proud of an absolutely brilliant year. And it's still not over yet. They still have to play Manchester City, and I think that's really, really good for the club to have that success, and to have two FA Cup successes in the space of 5 years. I think is good for the academy, and the more that happens, the better.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed Monday afternoon. It was a great watch. It was a great, honest game of football, on a par with what we watched in the Champions League semi-finals. I thought just two teams going for it. Really good game of football, and we just looked comfortable throughout. And as you say, congratulations to Jimmy Chan, because you're dealing with a man who was once a championship manager against Aston Villa when we played West Brom, obviously. But he's well and truly entangled in what we can see is a system that is instilled into the team from the top down, and it's a joy to watch. And it's a pat on the back for everybody, Mark Harrison and everybody down over the years that have brought in such amazing players and molded amazing players into what was a terrific day on Monday. And then 48 hours later to do that again today. Fair play to them. They did very, very well. A nice win, and nice for the club to have that. Hopefully we can bring a few of them through now. And particularly impressed with Aidan Borland, who I've been impressed with every time I've seen him. There's a few players in there that are really, really I'm optimistic it could make the breakthrough. So fingers crossed we're looking in 4 or 5 years' time at some of these players playing Champions League football.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, look, some of those players like George Hemmings, he signed his contract today with Aston Villa. Came over from Nottingham Forest. The club are huge on him. I had heard that previously, and it was reported today by Jacob Tanswell, I think it was. It might have been that the club are big fans of his, and that we could see him playing up the grades very, very soon. I know he's only just gone 18 as well, but the club don't seem age our ability being a hindrance to him moving up through the grades, which is really interesting to see. Obviously, and another thing, Paddy, is the club went away and beat Man City, a team that hadn't lost since November of last year. And it did it without arguably their best attacking player outside of Jamaldine and Jimaloba. Like they did it without Ben Bragio, which isn't, it's a huge feather in the cap for this club. And the way that they're coached, it was so funny. I was actually watching it with my dad. They were up here at the weekend, and I was watching it with him. And even he remarked to me, he goes, "This team plays very like Unai Emery's team." And I said, "Yeah, well, that's something that Emery and Mark Harrison have gotten together and have wanted to do for quite a while." And you can see it, that the comfortability from the two centre halves, that the fact that the two wing backs could get forward, and yeah, then you've got the likes of Burrows, Hemmings, Jamaldine, and Proctor even up top. The way that he got himself about the field as well, and of course the cameo performance at 10 minutes from Bloomfield. Wow, like literally, how many tackles, how many blocks, how many, he was just all over the place there towards the end. So yeah, look, it was great. It was absolutely brilliant.
He's a real stopper, isn't he? He was just throwing his head in there. He was like it reminds you of an Olaf Melberg coming in there just to shore up a three-man central defensive unit.
Yeah.
And he just got himself in front of everything, and then he was celebrating blocks like Paul McGrath used to do. It was a real throwback to see him in there, but he looks like an old head on young shoulders. Maybe with a bit of nurturing, he becomes a regular fixture in there and on the under-21s and could get a whole lot better. But yeah, I think that was one of the standouts for the last 10 minutes. Just they knew exactly why they brought him in there, and he did exactly what was asked of him.
Excellent, Jan. We wish them all the best, as I say, as they do play against Man City in the North and South, as they come together for the overall championship, we would say. But regardless of whatever happens there, they've had an absolutely superb year. And also to the women's team, the Aston Villa women's team, just finding form out of nowhere in the last 3 or 4 games, scoring goals for fun, beating big teams, and staving off relegation as I thought they would always do. So well done to the manager, whose name is absolutely escaped my brain. Just there as I went to say her name, I couldn't think of it. But well done on that as well. Yeah. As I said, the club took an underwhelming year, I think, for the women is probably the best way to put it. Lots of hope at the start of the year. But on the 8th of May, I think a lot of you did a preview show with some of the guys, with Freya and somebody else who, again, I do apologize, my names are escaping me at this moment in time, at the start, and everybody was full of hope and optimism. It just didn't work that way under the Dutch manager they had, but here's hoping that that's a good springboard into next season as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of lessons have been learned. I think there were some big names brought in that didn't work out and ultimately moved on. We lost the dynamism of Kenza Daly, who was just effervescent since she came into the team, and just had a bad season and moved on ultimately, as did Adriana Leon. So maybe the likes of those big names aren't the way forward. Maybe they need to build a squad that's capable of competing at the upper end of it without the big names, and just fly under the radar for a year and get themselves back on track into the top half of the table, and be ready for the year ahead. Before you move on to talk about Bournemouth, I just wanted to give a special mention to a man who's very strangely become a part of my life, and that was Peter McParland, who passed away. Peter came on my radar when I first started supporting Villa. It was the summer of 1991, and I used to help a guy out, doing a bit of labouring for him that summer. And this guy used to play for Dundalk with Peter McParland, would you believe? And when he heard that I was supporting Villa, he was telling me all the stories about him. And it's one of those where you're going, yeah, this fella's filling me full of rubbish here now, and this never happened. And fast forward then, the balls of 20 years, I found myself sitting beside Peter McParland in Villa Park, and I brought up his name, and he could tell me the man's children, his wife's name, everything. And we just had an amazing 90 minutes sitting, talking to him, chatting about Irish football, Northern Ireland football. Told me the story about how difficult it was back in those days to choose between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And it was a real life lesson. But you could not meet a nicer gentleman than Peter McParland. And, he had a great innings, really looked after himself. I'm pretty sure I won't live to that age because he said the secret of his success was the lack of alcohol in his system. So I'm probably not going to be living till I'm 91. So, but look, it needs to be said because he was an absolute gentleman, and he's steeped in Aston Villa history. He became the first player to score the winning goals in an FA Cup final and a League Cup final because he scored in the very first one. Also famous for that challenge on Ray Wood in the Man United goal in the first few minutes, I think, of that 1957 Cup final. But the last remaining survivor from that 1957 team is probably a little bit of a timely reminder to the people we have in charge at our club. We need to look after our heroes of 82. We need to worship them now before it's too late. We've already lost Gary Shaw. We've already lost Eamon Deasy, who was there at the time. It's time to look after those players. It's time to put them on pedestals with the European Cup in their hand outside of the Trinity Road or the Holt End or whatever that is. Forget about putting statues of lions. There needs to be statues of the real lions, and they were the lions that played in Rotterdam on that day. So hopefully that's something that's going to happen in the very near future. Maybe it'll be part of the North Stand refurbishment. But I think that's a very important project, and I hope the club pick up on it and celebrate it, because the club wasn't formed when the Premier League was formed. We need to celebrate the past. We need to celebrate the fact that we've got that European Cup that annoys our neighbours so much. So let's annoy them a bit more and put those statues there and remind the world that they're dealing with a big club. We've had this immense year of showing the world what Aston Villa is about, and our majestic stadium in televisions all around the world. Now get those guys on the televisions all around the world and celebrate the fact that we are incredibly lucky and incredibly proud of those players before it's too late. Because at one stage, we will look back and go,
it will be too late.
That was a mistake not to do it.
Absolutely. Well said, Paddy. Absolutely well said. And I echo all those as well. One of the beautiful things about Villa Park is not just its incredibly lovely architectural exterior, I suppose, with the red brick and stuff like that. And it's full of history. You just smell the history off it as well. But, you walk around the stadium. There's a few nods, of course, obviously, to the fact that we've won a European Cup. But, let's put it front and center. I think some people may say it's tin pot, some people may say it's however many years ago. But look, at the end of the day, they don't come around too often unless you're being lucky to be born in the parishes of Madrid or Milan or Liverpool, I suppose, or even Barcelona. They don't come around too often, so it's important that those things.
And they need to be celebrated, especially the fact that we won the European Cup. A lot of clubs bought the European Cup. We won it.
And we won it
with homegrown
competition.
Heroes.
Yeah.
The players who were born within a stone's throw of Villa Park. It has to be celebrated. It has to be celebrated more, and we just don't do enough for them guys. So fingers crossed that that's next on the agenda. Obviously, building that North Stand is important, but I would have much preferred to see a statue of our captain holding aloft the European Cup than a lion going in there. But that's just my little rant for the day. Not a rant, but just an observation, I suppose. But
exactly.
Yeah, it's a sad week for the club as well. Losing such a hero is never easy at any time. So there was a great mark of respect for him at the game of the weekend, and I'd imagine we'll see the same when we line up against Spurs next week.
Absolutely. 100%. Paddy, do we want to go in and talk about the Spurs things first and then get to the Bournemouth game? Just for anybody who's here for the Bournemouth stuff, we might just give it. You know what? We'll get all the ancillary information, I suppose, out of the way first. But fucking farce, Paddy. If I'll steal the swearing. I'll be the first person to swear on the podcast tonight. But like first thing I tweeted about, Paddy, was the first thing, and it was the only thing that I really gave a shite about, because look, when you move the match against Spurs from a Sunday to a Friday, it's of no competitive benefit to Aston Villa Football Club to have it in any of those days. So it's not about a competitive benefit. It's not about being, for me, it was never really at this stage of the competition where Spurs are likely going to be in a final, the bitterness about us not getting games moved and stuff. That's ancillary. That is context more to it. But the big thing for me was, I knew of a lad coming from Australia who was coming to this game, who'd saved all year to come to this game, and then to have it moved to a Friday. He can get to the game, but he's flying in like fucking Friday morning after being a 24-hour flight from. And I know that
people into London, and he's got to get himself up there. And he's London all the way. He's one of the lucky ones. He's one of the lucky ones. He will get there. There's many, me included. I'm not making this about me, but there's many like me that had to make a decision whether they're going to pay for the flight or not. I paid for the flight. I went in because the flight had doubled in price from the time the fixture was announced. So it was 8 days after we were knocked out of the FA Cup, and they still hadn't announced whether the game was at 2 o'clock, at 7 o'clock. And I should have read the alarm bells. And look, it's nothing about Spurs. They made the mistake by putting the Man United game on the Friday night. That is their biggest mistake. They should have just said, okay, we don't want to clash with the FA Cup. Both of you play at 12 o'clock on Saturday. Get it out of the way. But no, for the second year in a row, our last game of the season can't be celebrated. It was moved to a Monday night last year to give Jurgen Klopp more airtime in his long goodbye. But you know, they've got to understand that.
And Spud nearly missed out on that as well, didn't he? Spud nearly missed out on that one too.
He had to pay for a new flight to go to that one.
A new flight for that, yeah. So it's 2 years in a row.
So that's 2 years in a row. That's happened. And look, if we'd have won the FA Cup semi-final, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there either. The bottom line is 10 days out from a fixture. That they told us was either on the 2 o'clock or 7 o'clock on the Sunday, that they moved it to a Friday. That's unprecedented. That's not done for us. That never ever gets done for anybody. But the greedy six, unfortunately, get their way, and I have no doubt in my mind that there was a whole lot going on behind the scenes. You could tell by the tone of what Demian Vidigani said, that they were exacerbated and they were fighting for the fans, and I get that. I totally get that. But the Premier League need to have a serious look at themselves, because whoever is arranging fixtures in there, did they automatically assume the Spurs weren't going to get there and Man United were? I have no idea.
What I don't understand, exactly, Paddy. No, I agree 100%. But what I don't understand, and is both Monchi and Vidigani alluded to the fact that the Premier League initially wanted to put it on the Wednesday night. The Wednesday night of that week, which to me makes absolutely no sense. If they wanted to give Spurs equal time for Man United, why would they put it on the Wednesday night? Why were they pushing for the Tuesday or the Wednesday night of that week, which to me is bonkers stuff. But they're going to move the United game then as well. So there's a couple of things that don't make an awful lot of sense about this. I'm not here to put on a tinfoil hat or anything, or to question Vidigani or anything like that. I agree that they fought for the fans. They got the closest date to a weekend they possibly could. But as I say, as you said, sorry, should I say, Paddy, it's not about Spurs. It's not about anything to do with that. And it never was. My initial tweet was never to do with that. My initial tweet was to do with the amount of people I know who were flying over for that game. And I know that the Premier League don't just, well, the Premier League will or do always take into account the fans traveling from overseas, because it's become an overseas game as well. Like, you just see it with every single club relies on touristic football and fans following from overseas as well. They just do. And we don't expect the Premier League to take into account just that Marcus fly over from Australia. But you know what I mean? Yeah. It's the nonsense of it, the 10 days out for people who've made their plans. And also, look, people who are close by. I can guarantee you there was a lot of people going into work the next day going, I'm going to need to finish up early on the Friday, because they needed to travel from Cornwall, or they need to travel from the Isle of Wight, or they need to travel down from Scotland, or they need to travel up from London or whatever, for where people are working, and to get there for 7:30 again for the last home game of the season. Lots of people want to be there. And it wouldn't surprise me, Paddy, if there's 35,000 in the stadium. Wouldn't surprise me, for the game. I don't think there will be, but it wouldn't surprise me.
No. The stadium will be full, and the stadium will be full because, in fairness to the club, they've given people the option of getting their money back for whatever they've purchased, and so it should be. That's the minimum they can do. But it's not, as you say, it's not just about me, and it's not just about Spud, who's coming from Australia. I sat in the airport last Sunday going home, and there was people there from Holland, there was people there from Turkey, there was people from Spain, there was people from Canada, there was people from America, and you're just asking yourself, do they even care about these people? Somebody made the decision to put that Man United game on the Friday night. They must be accountable for doing that, because they've discommoded so many people. And for the second year in a row, the last game of the season should be a celebration. The last home game of the season should be a celebration of what's gone on throughout the year, a chance for the players to come out, do a lap of honour. Last year, they were doing that lap of honour at 10:30 at night. Most of the people had to take their kids home. They won't remember that. It'll be the same this year as well. So, I'm under no illusion that they don't give a shit about Aston Villa. I know that. They care about the six clubs that try to do a breakaway league, and they're afraid of their life for them now. I know that for sure. I'm under no illusion that UEFA single-handedly gave Man United a hand up last Wednesday with the most ridiculous sending off I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen many stupid stuff in the Premier League, but when have you last seen a fella getting sent off for holding a fella in the box? Give me a break, lads, because
I didn't even watch it.
Yeah. It was absolutely
the double jeopardy rule. The double jeopardy rule in an instance like that.
You gave the penalty. Yellow card was enough if you saw fit. And I was laughing because Robbie Savage started talking about a red card, and he gave the red card. I was like, my God. But anyway, let's not go on about that. But I'm just stating the fact that these guys get a hand up. There's no doubt about it. They're looked after. We tried on numerous occasions over the last couple of years to move stuff. When Liverpool got to the Carabao Cup final, they moved our fixture within what seemed like minutes. There you go, you're playing on that day, and fuck Aston Villa, you'll play 4 games in 13 days and we don't give a shit about you. And then we played one Premier League game in March. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, there you go. That's the rant out of the way. They don't care about us, and I don't care about them. And the worst part is now that one of those teams that probably finished 15th and fucking 16th is going to get a Champions League spot next year. And that's just mental. And they've got a handy run. It's the first year that Europa League was played without someone dropping out of the Champions League.
And that's and there you go,
we had to play teams that were dropped out of the Europa League last year in the Conference League. And there you go. And never get that rub of the green.
No, exactly, yeah. And what we will see is the Europa League will be dominated by English teams. The Conference League should be absolutely waltzed by English teams going forward. Should just be waltzed by English teams going forward. It really, really should. There should be no excuse for Chelsea not going away and blowing away every bit of competition in that. Anyway, but that's a conversation for another day. The secondary and tertiary European competitions, I think over time may become if you think they're diminished now, they may become incredibly diminished by the lack of. But then again, all you need is one team to pull out a shocker, like I suppose Shamrock Rovers did a couple of times this year. But look, we get into that. That's a podcast for the off season, Paddy. That's a podcast for the off season. We're only 25 minutes into this podcast about Bournemouth anyway, and we might as well get chatting about them because look, as I say, we're going to have I suppose before last weekend, I would have felt a lot more confident about this game, but then Bournemouth go away and do what they've done all year, and they've pulled out a result out of nowhere against Arsenal. And I must say, though, against the flagging Arsenal team, an Arsenal team that's looked out of sorts for the last 6 or 7 weeks, an Arsenal team that, you know,
second best team in the Champions League, though.
Second best, well, but apparently the best team in the Champions League. And isn't that what he said? Isn't that what Arteta said? Best team in the Champions League. That even the PSG guys said that too. But anyway, they got a result from Arsenal last weekend. Arsenal go 1-0 up, and then they come back steaming back 8 minutes. Cameo in or salvo, should I say, in the second half with Huysen getting the first goal, and then even Nielsen getting the second goal then in the 75th minute. And that's really put a massive gloss on their last few fixtures because they were losing games, they were drawing games mostly. They looked like their season was petering out. And this has given them a bit of a shot in the arm just when we least needed it, I think. Yeah.
Look, they've had an incredible season, and they've done a job on a lot of clubs, but they have, like, they lost to Ipswich a few weeks ago as well, so they have had that in them. Probably just going to finish just outside the well, maybe not. They probably need to win as much as we do this weekend, still in the shout for Conference League, and that's why I anticipate that this is going to be the hardest game in the run in. Obviously, Man U and Tottenham have nothing to play for. Man U proved that by making 8 changes at the weekend. Do you remember Mick McCarthy making all those changes for Wolves years ago?
Yeah,
and we heard about it for a
week and a half. And the FA were talking about fining Wolves like millions and stuff like that. Yeah. And have you heard anything about Man United's 8 changes at the weekend? I haven't heard a thing. Remember Villa made changes against City last year, and it was a talking point for a week. Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Is right. We also had other news, Paddy, about this game. Bad news. We heard out of nowhere that Yuri Tielemans is going to be out for the rest of the year, so he's not going to be. So that will be one change Aston Villa will need to make at the weekend. Not really out of nowhere. No, I did notice on Saturday that he put his hand up to come off, and then he very gingerly walked because the only bit of work that Robert Jones decided to do in the whole fucking day was to stop him from walking straight off the pitch. So he made him walk probably an extra 10 yards to go the other, or he would have taken probably another 10 seconds to get him off the pitch. But you could see he was visibly holding something. And the way he was saying goodbye to everybody suggested that he knew the season was over. We haven't had official confirmation. We'll probably get that tomorrow. But it is unfortunate because he has been undoubtedly our best player this season by an absolute landslide, and nobody will convince me otherwise. He's been an absolutely incredible player for us this season, and he will be missed. Thankfully, we do have backup. We do have Onana in there who has done particularly well since he came back in the couple of games. He's looked fresh and hungry, which we need. Barkley didn't have the best of games when he came on at the weekend, but rustiness, fitness, who knows? We're reluctant to do too much there because he's been out for a very long time. But there is cover there. We know McGinn can do it, and he has done it. But I would have loved to have Tielemans to play out these last few games because he's played 52 or 53 games this season. It's absolutely madness. And look, something was going to give at some stage. We would have been incredibly lucky to get another 3 games out of him. But it is what it is, and he's just got a plan without him if that's the case. And it's most likely going to be Onana, I would imagine, in there because we've seen Onana and Kamara playing that that pivot positions before releases McGinn further forward. Maybe it's time for Asensio now to start playing from the start again. You know, the boil, he's gone really, I won't say he's gone off the boil, but he's gone off the boil. The last 4 or 5 games, up to him. Maybe we see a start for Leon Bailey out on the right-hand side. Maybe McGinn plays more centrally. Maybe then we have Morgan Rogers, because look, as much and all as we've given out about Bailey, much and all as we've lauded Asensio since he's come in, and by God does he deserve to be lauded for that 6 or 7 week period that he had when he's just scoring goals for fun. Maybe we go with that pacey your lineup of Morgan Rogers on the left, McGinn through the centre, Leon Bailey on the right, and maybe it's time for Malin to come in there on the right. We still have lots of options, I think, in that instance. We have Barkley back now, which is really good. And look, I've just started talking about fellas likes of George Hemmings and those guys, while I don't expect them to come up. Lamar Bogart is still with the club. Maybe we get to see him in his defensive midfielder position again, but they're all not Yuri Tielemans, and that's the thing. That's the kicker. But saying that, they all can come in there and do a job for Aston Villa in that role, but somebody else is going to need to step up and be that creative force that we do miss when Tielemans isn't on the bench.
He's a Swiss Army knife that can break up play, can dictate the pace of the game, passing is excellent, but he's also that one who can play, an exquisite pass to unlock a defence, especially if they choose to park the bus, which could very well happen at the weekend. They'll go and park the bus and try and hit us on the break is what I'm expecting. So fingers crossed that that's not the case, and we've got enough bodies to get in and do a job on them. It's not going to be difficult. There's a number of players there, that have really stepped up to the mark this season. They obviously got a really good manager. They've played really, really well at home. It hasn't been a happy stomping ground for us over the years. So it's one I'm not really looking forward to. I feel I'll be looking at through my fingers for 90 minutes, or behind my pint glasses. I hope it will be on Saturday evening. But look, I think it's going to be one hell of a fight, and we got to hope that we got the fire in the belly to go and do this, because I think after the last couple of weeks they always won. They could have very easily have thrown it away on Saturday. Never looked likely, but one chance is all it needed. They did get a couple of chances, but scuffed their lines. So a better team would have put us away last weekend, I believe. Bournemouth might have put us away. Pardon?
I don't believe a better team would have put us away. I think Fulham just didn't have any chances. Maybe you could say a better team.
He kicked it straight into his hands. There was chances. Yeah. There was a chance at the end as well. I forget who was one of the subs came on and got the chance at the end.
I just never felt Fulham were going to beat us. I never felt Fulham.
No, I didn't either. In fairness, that's what I'm saying. I think a better team with a couple of chances they got might have taken them. So we're going to need to take our chances this weekend. We're going to need to create chances, and we probably will need more than one goal to go and beat Bournemouth.
Look, again, it's not the happiest hunting ground for us there, but our performances, our games against Bournemouth, I think we've won 2, drawn 2, lost 2 of the last 6 games against Bournemouth. So look, we'll see how it goes. They're unbeaten in their last 5 with 3 draws and 2 wins. We've got 4 wins and 1 loss, obviously, in our last 5. We are still, the form team in the league at the moment is Man City, who 4 wins and a draw. And one of those wins coming against us in the last minute. And then you've got us on 4 wins and a loss. And then the next form team, Paddy, who is the next form team, do you think?
Go on, tell me.
Wolves. Wolves had a serious resurgence under Villa Pereira. Serious resurgence. And Cat Cannon gets it there. Wolves. So look, as I say, albeit that we've, the current results, our recent results haven't really gone our way and stuff, we're still a team that has been eking out wins, and hopefully we can do that again. Again, what I would say is, look, at the weekend, Forest what was the story with the Forest game? I can't even remember the story with the first game. Were they losing? But it results. What I'm trying to get at here is the results didn't go our way. Newcastle play Chelsea this weekend. That is one that Forest got a draw. Yeah. Because I was looking at the goal difference there, and obviously we're still 6 goals behind them, so we do need to start scoring goals and start keep them out at the other end if that is not to become an issue for us with the Forest result. But Newcastle obviously play against Chelsea, both of them on 63 points, both of them looking to cement their place in the top 4, top 5. So that's one to look out for as well this weekend. But once again, as you said, Paddy, got to put out our own oxygen mask first. This isn't an easy one, but it's one that we should be going there and going there to win. Again, sometimes when Unai Emery is gone this season, has gone away, we have sat back, we've been ponderous, and we've let teams kind of dictate the play. I'm going to ask again. I don't think I'm going to get what I want, but I'm going to ask that we go on the front foot in this game. The one thing about going to Bournemouth is there's only 11,500 in the stadium. I refuse to believe that when you're used to playing in a stadium with 45,000 people screaming your name, that when you go to a stadium with only 11,000, and albeit of that 11,000, probably 10,500 of them will be Bournemouth fans. I refuse to believe that can be in any way, shape, or form intimidating for these footballers. So for me, I think you should be able to go there and take the game to Bournemouth early out and test their mettle and make sure that we're able to stamp our authority in this game as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I totally agree with your statement there about the atmosphere. I think for such a small stadium, they do generate a lot of noise. Give them their due. I've slagged them over the years.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is for the games the Villa have played this year, against Bayern Munich, against Barcelona, or against.
It's not going to be anything. It's not going to be anything more intimidating than what they've had. But I've slagged them in the past. But the fans there have upped their game and they make a lot of noise, similar to Luton Town did in their small ground. So, I think aside from all that, I think we've got to just do our own job. We got to forget about the noise on the outside. We got to forget what everybody else is doing. We just got to do our own job and just sit back on Saturday evening with 3 points in the bag and get in recovery mode for Spurs on the Friday. Because if we're not up for Spurs on the Friday, if we don't win this on Saturday, we won't be up for Spurs the following week because we'll be totally dejected and it'll be another lost opportunity. So that's it's a must. It's a must win. There's no backing down now. We've just got to go and win the bloody game and forget about everything else that's going on.
Paddy, what was our points total in 2024? It was 68 points. Yeah, just looking, for a season whereby we're all kind of going, season that coulda, woulda, shoulda. We still have an opportunity to finish on 69 points. It would beat our points total from last year, and that's what we're going to need to do if we are to get into the top table of European football. And even at that, it might not be. Yeah. Even at that, it may not be enough. But as you said, it may be enough as well. At the same time, like Chelsea still have some tricky games to play, but look, as I say, we need to put on our own oxygen mask first, as you say, should I say? In that instance, we need to win our games and let other teams worry about us. Who's the ref on Saturday? Do you know, Paddy? Stuart Atwell. Yes, yeah. I was just putting it up there. So Stuart Atwell is the ref on Saturday.
Couple of shout outs there, Neil. Gareth McDonough, who I managed to get 2 tickets for him and his young son at the weekend, his first ever trip to Villa Park. So it was nice to meet him and Ethan for a very short few minutes in the Aston Inn on Saturday evening, and I hope he had a great day. And I hope we've made a Villa fan for life there. Also to Tom, who I met in the Sacred Heart a bit later on the Saturday. When we left the Aston Inn. And I want to give a shout out to a lady that got very excited when she saw me in the whole tent. Her name is Jean. She came back and apologised after going to the loo afterwards because she got too excited. But it was lovely to meet her, and she was an absolute lady. And her son was looking at me going, "Who the hell are you?" But met some incredible people at the weekend, and great night Friday night in the Aston Inn for for Chad and the Villa Forever podcast, along with Justin and Hannah from Up the Villa and Frankie Maguire from All Villa No Filler. We had a great night, raised over £2,000 for Acorns. Great to help out Chad and great to meet such great people. James Wood, who's regularly in the comments there, drove down from Lincoln just to go to the show and meet the guys. Actually got up and said some lovely words at the end of it and thanked all the podcasters that do the work for Aston Villa. And amazing to hear from some people telling us, you know, what got them through COVID and got them through hard times and not being able to get to Villa Park and people like us making them feel like they're part of it. Everybody's part of it. We're all Villa fans. We're all in this together. So happy to have touched people in that way and made a difference. And for as long as people want me to do it, I'll continue doing it. It becomes very hard when you're stressed and upset and let down by the team. But we try and keep our best side out. And apologies for
last 10 days have been tough for you, Paddy. I've even left you alone for the majority of the last 10 days.
It's 2 weeks. 2 weeks now. It's 2 weeks since that Man City game. I've been struggling since that Man City game, and that's my that's my right too. I'm allowed. Exactly. Yeah, there's James in there now. Yeah, he got in there. Great to meet those guys, and our two Dutch friends were over as well that we met at the Celtic game.
Kylie and sorry, I've been forgetting names all day, Paddy. It's no excuse for you. I've been forgetting names all podcast, so I do apologise. It was there.
Yeah. But look, great night, great for everybody, and most importantly, over £2,000 for Acorns, and well done to Chad. I hope he gets to see this, and so I can thank him for inviting me along to do most of the presenting, and then Frankie Maguire interviewed me at the end, so it was a bit of fun, a bit of laugh, and good sports, and Justin as well. It was great. It's great to meet them and have a chat. And we should probably do more of it because it's good fun.
Absolutely, 100%. And I will definitely get to the next one. Because now I'm married. No, she can't throw me out. No, isn't that it? You just can't. You have to stay together forever. I think that's the rules, isn't it?
You never know.
I think that's the rules.
You never know.
That's what people said. That's what people said at the time. Anyway. Right, I'm going to fall asleep if I don't end this podcast really, really soon. For anybody who is watching this back and wondering why you've two
thank
podcasts...
you to Richard before you go.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Richard. Thank you so much. Remember, for 7 months, really appreciate it. Appreciate it, Richard. Thank you so much for that. If anybody's wondering why on the audio sphere that this will be broken up into two episodes, sometimes we get emails and we get messages. We said it before that sometimes people go, "Oh, I only wanted to listen to the preview of Bournemouth. I love Joe, but I'm not in the headspace to be listening to other things." That's fine. We're going to break them up into two so that people know what they can listen to as well. But just said I'd throw that one out there in case anybody's wondering why the hell there's two of them gone up there. We want to try and cater for everybody. And I know, look, this is billed as preview for Bournemouth versus Aston Villa. So, and we spent 25 minutes, if not 30 minutes talking about other things. So it's only fair that we break those up too for those who maybe just wanted to listen to the preview about Bournemouth and Aston Villa. Anyway, right.
After all that lovely chat, I forgot to mention our good friends Mark and Emma who looked after the sound.
Yes.
And we're just telling people to get there early on Friday night and look after us and give out to me for not putting the microphone up to my mouth and all that kind of stuff. But two absolute diamonds, Legends. The two of them. So thank you so much for looking after that. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much. They're two really, really great people. And I'm going to see you guys in July. When you're over this side. Exactly.
We're going to go for a rave.
Exactly. Well, I have a big weekend that weekend. I'm going for a rave, then I'm going for a big trad session the week after, and then hopefully my hurling team, Limerick, whereas here will be in the All-Ireland final on the Sunday. So I will be MIA for that whole weekend, hopefully, if that is the case, and probably the week afterwards. Anyway, we digress. Going to leave it at that, guys. We'll be back on Saturday. Team Sheet Tantrum at 4:10, and then post-match podcast then at about 7:25. Afterwards, hopefully we're talking about an Aston Villa win, and Villa's trudge towards European football continues. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Like, subscribe, share it, do all that beautiful stuff. Tell your neighbour that this podcast exists. If you wouldn't mind doing that, it's great. You try and help us grow the audience and grow the community that we have here. But until then, until Saturday, everybody, mind yourselves, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.